While everyone remembers Star Wars and Jaws, the 1970s produced dozens of brilliant films that mysteriously vanished from popular culture. Today we're exploring 15 forgotten masterpieces that showcase the decade's true creative daring, from Nicholson's most vulnerable performance to groundbreaking feminist cinema that predicted today's indie movement. 1. The King of Marvin Gardens, 1972. Let's start with what might be Jack Nicholson's most overlooked performance. In The King of Marvin Gardens, we see an entirely different side of the actor who would become famous for his wild, over-the-top characters. Here, Nicholson plays David Stabler, a melancholy late-night radio host who spins fictional stories about his childhood for insomniacs across Philadelphia. When his wheeler-dealer brother Jason, played by a manic Bruce Dern, calls him to Atlantic City with promises of a big real estate score, David reluctantly leaves his comfortable world of words for the harsh reality of his brother's delusions. Director Bob Rafelson, who had previously worked with Nicholson on 5 Easy Pieces, creates something truly special here, a meditation on the American dream that feels both deeply personal and universally relevant. The film's Atlantic City isn't the glitzy casino destination we know today, but a faded boardwalk town full of empty promises and broken-down dreams. Rafelson shoots the city like a beautiful corpse, all peeling paint and winter light, creating a perfect backdrop for a story about men who mistake fantasy for opportunity. What makes The King of Marvin Gardens so compelling is how it subverts our expectations of both Nicholson and the typical American success story. Instead of the charming rebel we expect, Nicholson gives us a man paralyzed by his own sensitivity, someone who can create beautiful stories but struggles to live in the real world. The film asks difficult questions about the relationship between art and life, between the stories we tell ourselves and the truths we must face. It's a remarkably mature work that deserved far more attention than it received, overshadowed by flashier films, and perhaps too introspective for audiences expecting typical Nicholson fireworks. Wanda, 1970. Wanda represents one of the most remarkable achievements in American independent cinema, and the fact that it remains largely unknown is nothing short of tragic. Barbara Loden, actress, writer, and director, created something unprecedented, a completely unvarnished portrait of a woman adrift in working-class America, shot with a documentary-like intimacy that wouldn't become common until decades later. Loden stars as the title character, a Coyle Town woman who seems to float through life without agency or direction. When we first meet Wanda, she's late to her own divorce hearing, apparently unconcerned that she's losing custody of her children. This isn't played for comedy or melodrama. Loden presents Wanda's disconnection as a survival mechanism, a way of numbing herself to circumstances she feels powerless to change. The film follows her as she drifts into a relationship with a small-time criminal, not out of attraction or desperation, but simply because it's another current to carry her forward. What makes Wanda extraordinary is Loden's refusal to judge her protagonist or provide easy explanations for her behavior. Shot on 16mm film with natural lighting and real locations, the movie has an almost ethnographic quality, as if Loden is documenting a slice of American life that had never been honestly portrayed on screen. The film's feminist credentials aren't about empowerment in any conventional sense. Instead, Loden shows us a woman so beaten down by poverty and limited options that she's internalized her own powerlessness. The movie's influence can be seen in everything from the Dardenne brothers' social realism to Kelly Reichardt's quiet character studies. Yet, Wanda remains largely unseen. Part of this is due to practical reasons. Loden died young, and the film lacked proper distribution. But part of it may be that audiences weren't ready for such an uncompromising portrait of female desperation. Watching it today, Wanda feels both like a historical document and a startlingly contemporary examination of economic hopelessness and gender dynamics. 3. Claudine, 1974. In the middle of the blaxploitation boom of the 1970s, Claudine offered something radically different. A warm, intelligent, and nuanced portrait of Black family life that refused to sensationalize poverty or romanticize struggle. Diane Carroll delivers a career-best performance as Claudine Price, a Harlem single mother of 6 who works as a housekeeper while navigating the impossible maze of welfare regulations that seem designed to keep families apart rather than help them stay together. The film's brilliance lies in its specificity and humanity. When Claudine begins a relationship with Root Marshall, played with surprising tenderness by James Earl Jones, the movie doesn't present their romance as an escape from her problems, but as another complication in an already complex life. The welfare system forces Claudine to hide her relationship. Having a man in the house could mean losing benefits, creating a situation where love becomes another thing that poverty makes dangerous. Director John Barry and screenwriters Tina Pine and Lester Pine create a world that feels absolutely authentic. From the cramped Harlem apartment where Claudine's family lives to the wealthy suburban homes where she cleans. The film's comedy emerges naturally from the characters' resilience and intelligence, never mocking their circumstances, but celebrating their ability to find joy and connection despite systemic obstacles. Carol's Claudine is neither saint nor victim. She's a pragmatic survivor who makes difficult choices with incomplete information, just like real people do. Claudine earned Carol an Oscar nomination for Best Actress, making her only the 4th Black woman nominated in that category at the time. Yet the film remains underseen, perhaps because it doesn't fit neatly into expected categories. It's not a message movie about racism, though racism permeates every aspect of the characters' lives. It's not a romance, though the love story between Claudine and Roop provides the film's emotional center. Instead, it's something rarer and more valuable. An honest, complex portrait of people living with dignity under difficult circumstances, finding ways to create meaning and connection in a system designed to divide them. The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973. The Friends of Eddie Coyle might be the most realistic crime film ever made, and that's precisely why it flopped at the box office. In an era when audiences were falling in love with the romanticized violence of The Godfather and Bonnie and Clyde, director Peter Yates delivered something far less palatable. A gray, unglamorous world where crime is just another dead-end job populated by tired, middle-aged men who've run out of better options. Robert Mitchum gives what many consider his finest performance as Eddie Fingers Coyle, a small-time gun runner facing jail time who must decide whether to inform on his associates to avoid prison. Mitchum, then in his 50s, brings a lifetime of weariness to the role, creating a character who understands exactly how little his life is worth to everyone around him. The film's Boston locations, working-class bars, suburban bank branches, highway diners, become a character in themselves, representing an America where dreams have curdled into mere survival. What sets The Friends of Eddie Coyle apart from other crime films is its complete lack of glamour or excitement. The bank robberies feel like tedious jobs performed by bored professionals. The gun deals happen in parking lots between men who discuss firearms with the same enthusiasm they might bring to selling used cars. Even the violence, when it comes, feels routine and inevitable rather than shocking or cathartic. Based on George V. Higgins' acclaimed novel, the film captures the author's genius for authentic criminal dialogue. These characters speak in the rhythms and patterns of real street criminals, not Hollywood tough guys. The movie's structure mirrors the moral ambiguity of its world, providing no clear heroes or villains, just people making increasingly desperate choices as their options narrow. Peter Boyle delivers a particularly chilling performance as Dylan, a bartender who serves as both Eddie's friend and his potential executioner, embodying the film's central theme that loyalty and betrayal often wear the same face. 5. Straight Time, 1978. Dustin Hoffman delivers one of his most committed performances as Max Dembo, a career criminal attempting to go straight after prison release. The film follows his inevitable slide back into crime as parole supervision becomes a series of humiliations and dead ends. Hoffman produced the project and originally planned to direct, bringing remarkable authenticity to a character damaged by institutionalization. The movie refuses to romanticize either criminal life or the rehabilitation system, instead showing how bureaucratic indifference and social rejection create the very recidivism they claim to prevent. Director Ulu Grosbard crafts tense heist sequences while never letting us forget the human cost of Max's choices. 6. Picnic at Hanging Rock, 1975. Peter Weir's dreamlike mystery follows schoolgirls who vanish during a Valentine's Day picnic at an ominous Australian rock formation. The film operates more like a haunting dream than conventional narrative, using ethereal cinematography and hypnotic pan-flute music to create an atmosphere of otherworldly dread. Weir refuses to explain the disappearance, instead exploring themes of sexual repression and the clash between civilization and primal nature. The landscape becomes a character itself, representing ancient forces that civilized society cannot control or understand. This influential mystery spawned countless imitators, but none matched its unique combination of beauty and unease. 7. The Long Goodbye, 1973. Robert Altman transplants Raymond Chandler's detective Philip Marlowe into 1970s Los Angeles, creating a fascinating study of obsolete masculinity. Elliot Gould's confused, ineffective Marlowe stumbles through a counterculture world he doesn't understand, still believing in loyalty and honor, while everyone around him operates by different rules. Altman's trademark overlapping dialogue and drifting camera create an unstable world where traditional narrative certainties no longer apply. The recurring theme song in various arrangements reinforces the death of old American values. Sterling Hayden's alcoholic writer represents collapsing literary culture, while the shocking ending completely recontextualizes the entire detective genre with contemporary moral relativism. 8. Sorcerer, 1977. William Friedkin's ambitious thriller follows four desperate men transporting volatile nitroglycerin through South American jungle to extinguish an oil well fire. Released weeks after Star Wars, this dark existential masterpiece was too challenging for summer audiences seeking light entertainment. The film's centerpiece, driving explosive-laden trucks across a storm-battered suspension bridge, remains one of cinema's most nerve-wracking sequences, shot with real trucks and practical effects. Roy Scheider leads a cast of men running from their past. Finding their journey becomes both literal escape and metaphorical redemption. Friedkin creates a meditation on fate and desperation that deserved recognition alongside his other classics like The French Connection. 9. Rolling Thunder, 1977. William Devane stars as Major Charles Racine, a Vietnam POW who returns home after 7 years to find his wife with another man and his son estranged. When criminals brutally attack his family while seeking his homecoming gift of silver dollars, Rane embarks on methodical revenge. What elevates this above typical revenge films is its psychological complexity. Rane isn't simply angry, but fundamentally damaged by captivity, seeming almost incapable of normal emotions. Tommy Lee Jones appears as a fellow veteran who joins the mission, representing the bond between soldiers isolated from civilian society. Written by Paul Schrader, the film shares taxi drivers' preoccupation with violence and alienation, becoming Quentin Tarantino's inspiration for his production company name. 10. The Driver, 1978. Walter Hill strips the crime thriller to absolute essentials in this minimalist masterpiece about the relationship between hunter and prey. Ryan O'Neal plays the title character, known only as the Driver, a professional getaway specialist pursued by Bruce Dern's obsessed detective. Hill eliminates backstory, romance, and comic relief, focusing purely on driving mechanics and pursuit psychology. O'Neal's driver rarely speaks and never explains his motivations, defined entirely by machine-like professional precision. Shot on real Los Angeles streets with practical effects, the car chases achieve ballet-like intensity. This influential film directly inspired Drive, 2011, while remaining unique in its pure commitment to minimalist storytelling that trusts audiences to find meaning in silence. 11. Over the Edge, 1979. Jonathan Kaplan's prophetic warning about suburban alienation follows teenagers in the planned community of New Granada who rebel against adult neglect. Matt Dillon makes his film debut as Richie White, a charismatic troublemaker whose criminality masks deeper anger about being invisible to adults. The film refuses to paint teens as victims or delinquents, instead showing logical responses to an environment offering nothing meaningful. When parents eliminate the few creative outlets available, violent confrontation becomes inevitable. The shocking climax features teens declaring war on adults, barricading them in a school while burning police cars. Featuring a killer, Cheap Trick soundtrack, this banned in many theaters film anticipated concerns about suburban sprawl and youth alienation decades before they became mainstream topics. 12th Day for Night, 1973. François Truffaut's loving portrait of filmmaking follows director Ferrand, Truffaut himself, and his cast and crew through various crises during production of Meet Pamela. The title refers to a technique where day scenes are filtered to appear nocturnal, a perfect metaphor for cinema's artifice creating emotional truth. Unlike cynical Hollywood exposés, Truffaut celebrates collaborative filmmaking and genuine affection between artists working toward common goals. Jacqueline Bisset, Jean-Pierre Léaud, and Valentina Cortese deliver excellent performances representing different industry archetypes. This foreign language Oscar winner gets overshadowed by Truffaut's new wave classics, but it represents his most mature work, an accessible examination of creativity that extends beyond cinema, offering insights into how art gets made. 13. Little Murders, 1971. Jules Feiffer's savage satire presents one of the blackest comedies of the decade, following passive photographer Alfred Chamberlain, Elliot Gould, who seems immune to surrounding chaos and violence in New York City. His relationship with aggressively optimistic Patsy Newquist, Marcia Rod, unfolds against urban decay treated as normal background noise. Characters casually discuss muggings and random shootings like weather reports, having adapted to extreme conditions as simply the cost of city living. Gould's Alfred has emotionally shut down as survival mechanism, photographing only dog excrement as his artistic response to urban degradation. Director Alan Arkin emphasizes theatrical elements while maintaining genuine anger beneath the humor. The climactic family shooting spree feels like logical extension of normalized violence. 14. A Touch of Class, 1973. Melvin Frank's sophisticated romantic comedy follows divorced fashion designer Vicky Alessio, Glenda Jackson, and married American businessman Steve Blackburn, George Siegel, as their casual affair develops into something deeper and more complicated. The film refuses to judge its characters or provide easy moral answers. Steve isn't villainous for cheating, and Vicky isn't a victim for dating a married man. Jackson won the Oscar for Best Actress, creating a fully realized independent woman with her own needs rather than a typical other woman role. The comedy emerges naturally from practical complications of conducting international affairs while dealing with suspicious wives and hotel reservations. This sophisticated adult entertainment represents when romantic comedies could handle complex moral situations without losing entertainment value. 15. The Black Stallion, 1979. Carol Ballard's magical family film trusts visual storytelling so completely that its first 40 minutes contain almost no dialogue. Young Alec, Kelly Reno, encounters a magnificent Arabian stallion aboard a Mediterranean ship that later sinks, stranding boy and horse on a deserted island where they develop mutual trust and understanding. Ballard often places the camera at the stallion's eye level, helping audiences understand the animal's wildness and intelligence without anthropomorphizing him. The island sequences represent some of the decade's most beautiful filmmaking, using natural light to create images both realistic and dreamlike. When Mickey Rooney appears as a retired trainer, the film shifts toward conventional horse racing, but the original's first half remains a unique achievement in wordless cinematic poetry that proves family films needn't be simple. Completely that its first 40 minutes contain almost no dialogue, instead relying on images, sound, and Mickey Rooney's evocative score to tell the story of a boy named Alec, Kelly Reno, and his relationship with a magnificent Arabian stallion. The film begins on a ship traveling across the Mediterranean, where young Alec first encounters the Black Stallion, a horse so wild and beautiful that he seems almost mythical. When the ship sinks in a storm, Alec and the horse find themselves stranded together on a deserted island, where they gradually develop a bond based on mutual dependence and growing trust. These island sequences represent some of the most beautiful filmmaking of the 1970s, using natural light and real locations to create images that feel both realistic and dreamlike. What makes The Black Stallion extraordinary is Ballard's decision to tell this story through the horse's perspective as much as the boy's. The camera often places us at the stallion's eye level, helping us understand his wildness, intelligence, and gradual acceptance of human companionship. The relationship between Alec and the horse develops without anthropomorphizing the animal or reducing him to a simple plot device. Instead, we see a genuine interspecies communication based on respect and understanding rather than dominance. When Alec and the stallion are finally rescued and returned to America, the film shifts gears to become a more conventional story about horse racing, with Mickey Rooney appearing as a retired trainer who helps prepare the horse for competition. While these later sequences are entertaining and well-made, they can't quite match the wordless poetry of the island scenes. The film's climactic race is expertly staged and genuinely exciting, but it feels almost mundane compared to the magical realism of the film's first half. The Black Stallion spawned several sequels and became a beloved family film, but its reputation has been somewhat diminished by association with lesser follow-ups. The original deserves to be remembered as a unique achievement in family filmmaking, a movie that respects its young audience enough to tell a sophisticated story about friendship, trust, and the relationship between humans and nature. It's a film that proves children's movies don't need to be simple or condescending to be accessible, and that some stories are best told through images rather than words. These 15 films represent just a fraction of the cinematic treasures that the 1970s produced beyond its well-known classics. Each one offers something unique, whether it's Jack Nicholson's most vulnerable performance, Barbara Loden's groundbreaking feminist filmmaking, or Carol Ballard's wordless poetry. What they share is a willingness to take risks, to trust audiences with complex emotions and difficult truths, and to explore aspects of American life that mainstream Hollywood often ignored. The 1970s was a decade when studios were willing to finance personal, challenging films alongside commercial blockbusters. Directors like Altman, Friedkin, and Weir could pursue their artistic visions while still reaching mainstream audiences. This created an environment where films like Seize de Friendspo, Dispassion in Swirl,